dysplasia, and I was talking with some people out in the hall. Some of their dogs have hip dysplasia, and this is one of the reasons why we started the Barkery. We're going to touch on them. Cindy had chronic yeast issues and skin issues. I was talking to somebody who had those issues. You will learn a lot about that as well. One of the things that I found out when I was dealing with these issues was diet. Diet made a big change in their life. Aspen lived to almost 13, and she was 6 when she was first diagnosed, and Cindy was almost 14. So diet was really an important factor to us in doing this. Over the past 15 years, I've learned a lot of information. I am a non-vet member of the American Holistic Veterinary Association. I also studied their vet tech program at the Chi Institute in Florida. So there are many things that we have learned along our journey here that we're going to pass on to you. And you're probably asking, how are vaccines part of my nutrition? As I was listening to all of your comments out there, you will understand that vaccines can play a part in your pet's health. I learned the hard way. A lot of us have learned the hard way. And I'm going to get a little bit emotional because we could have saved so many other pets because of our vaccination protocol. We're not saying don't vaccinate. We're just saying be educated about your vaccinations. So that's all I will say about that, because it does lead into a lot about the health and well-being of your pet. The wellness assessment kit. As you can see, they were on the table earlier, is a test that will test the saliva and the hair of your animal. And it will give us some more information on how to make recommendations that will suit your pet. It does give you a lot of information. I don't want to go into it a lot because it's too much. So, as you can see, these are actual customers. We have Kelly. She was having so many issues, went into our Leaf Summit store, found out that it was could easily be resolved. She fixed it. And then Thomas with the Labrador, finicky eater. I talked to somebody who had a finicky eater. Guess what? After they did the wellness assessment kit, the dog is now eating really well. So there's a lot more of these testimonials on our website. Feel free to look at them. I think you'll be very impressed. So to get our program started, we're going to start talking about kibble. Kibble is it complements our dog food. It goes with the lifestyle of what we try to do. So tonight, we are very honored to have Daron Matsuura with Lotus Pet Food. Daron started his journey around 24 years ago. I won't go into the details of Daron's journey, and we can talk about it a little bit more in depth. But one of the things that struck me really funny is I went and visited their cannery, because I was the one that felt, and he'll talk about this about his kibble, I want to know what I'm selling. I want to know that what is on our shelves is not going to harm your pet. So guess what? Daron gave me the opportunity to visit the cannery. I was very impressed. The only thing at the very end, he took us into the conference room and had little cans of Lotus in front of us with a little spoon. And he said, try it. And because I saw how it was made, I tried it. And if we ever come into an apocalypse or something, you'll have Lotus Pet Food. That's great. So with that, I will let Daron come up and get his program started.
Well, my name is Daron Matsuura, and I am one of the founders and owners of Lotus. We started Lotus in 2003, and I come from pet retail, like Delena and Larry, and Tom, and Alex, and all the managers up there. And I've been doing pet retail for 23 years. That passion that Delena was talking about, that passion to educate customers about nutrition has really been, I guess, ingrained in how I think about things, how I think about educating customers. And that's a big part of why we started Lotus. And I'll talk more about that. But I'll also talk about baked foods for dogs, our nutritional philosophy, the cans. If anyone wants to try the cans, I do have some cups right here. And The cool thing about this is I feel very confident it's safe. I mean, it's human grade food. It's human grade turkey breast, turkey thigh meat in here. It's cooked in its own juices. I'll pass it around. You can at least smell it, so take it and maybe taste it. And then also, I'll definitely want to show you guys, has anyone ever been to a cannery or a place where they make dog or cat food?
Well, people food did not well.
What was that like? I'm just curious.
It was loud and noisy, but
Did you get to see ingredients and things like that?
yes, and it was a process that made me say I would make all my food forever and ever.
There are some places, and I've been to other pet food places, and I've said, or this is one of the reasons why we created a cannery, because I said to myself, and Chris, another one of ours, we talked amongst ourselves and decided we want to do things differently. And you can go to places and you can get that kind of experience where you walk out and like, I'm going to make my own food, or I'm never going to buy a can of dog food, but we definitely do things differently. And I definitely want to show you guys a video on that as well. And in terms of our history, so see that first photo up there? That's actually the retail company where I started. So it was called Sentinel Feed and Paint. And that building is from the 1930s, and you can see it's quite old. I actually didn't start in that building. But you can see, back then, what's the checkerboard stand for up there? Marina, right? So back then, in the 1930s, that was probably an okay food. There wasn't much around back then. Things have definitely changed. And that evolution is one of the things that I was definitely involved in, that educating customers. More and more foods came out that were better. And one of the things I like to talk about is baked foods. So we bake our foods. One of the reasons why we created Lotus was because we used to sell food that was actually baked. But then they were bought by a larger company. And when they were bought by this larger company, an investment company, they told us that they stopped baking. But they found a way to extrude a food, which is another way of making a food, that was just like baking. And they were good partners, and we decided to take that for face value and just, okay, you found a better way to extrude it, it's just like baking, we'll believe that. But what happened, being on the floor, and those customers that I used to recommend that to, they came up to me and they said, my dog's throwing up now. And his skin and coat doesn't look as good. So the bottom line is, what we found is this statement that they told us was not true. So this extrusion that was like baking was not true. Does anybody know about extrusion in baking? What have you?
High pressure, big batches,
So it's cooked under high pressure, it's cooked with steam, it's very fast. It's about 3 times as fast as baking a food. So if it's faster, what does that mean? What's that?
You cook more.
You could cook more, and if you could cook more, what happens?
More money.
Save money.
You save money, it costs less to manufacture. So what we found out was it was more about the money than actually about the nutrition. So that's why we actually created Lotus at that time, in 2003. So we bake in Canada. One of the cool things about baking in Canada is, does anybody know about the food regulations in Canada and why they are better? So one of the cool, go ahead.
they're higher regulated and more restricted in the United States.
So what does it mean to be higher, though? How can we quantify that?
They're more strict.
They are more strict. So one example of being more strict is none of the meat can actually have hormones or antibiotics in the meat. And if farmer gets actually the farmers that raise like turkeys and chickens and things like that, the animals actually get tested for hormones and antibiotics, and if it is found that they're using those, that farm gets shut down. So they are pretty strict. So definitely a unique thing to Canada in terms of protein. So we bake in Canada, and that's a picture of me at the bakery. It's a family-owned bakery called Bio Biscuit, and that's me and another retailer. His name is Simon. He has a store in Portland, Oregon, and he actually does not bring in a food to his retail store until he sees where it's made. Why do you think that's so important to me?
He knows what he's selling his customers.
What's that?
He knows what he's selling his customers.
He does. So about 8 years ago, there was a really bad food recall. So about 10,000 dogs and cats died. Does anybody remember what caused that? Yes.
Melamine?
Yes, melamine. What is melamine?
It's a plastic, isn't it?
It totally is plastic. I mean, it's crazy, right? So why would you put plastic into a food? It's cheap. Actually, it was zero cost. It was just the waste from making like bowls and things like that. But the crazy thing is when you test the food and there's melamine in there, it actually looks like protein. It reads high in nitrogen. So that's why they put it in there. It's just a way to cheat people. But my point with Simon is he had a lot of his customers, his dogs and cats, or their dogs and cats passed away because of that melamine. Because what happens with melamine, it actually shuts down the kidneys and crystallizes in there. So it's a terrible, terrible thing. But he got to see, one of the things he came up to see at Bio Biscuit, at our bakery, was he wanted to make sure that our vitamins were actually made in Europe and not made in China. Because if you guys didn't know, where that whole melamine thing started was actually in China. So that's a big thing with us, is our ingredient sourcing, even down to our vitamins is very, very important. And then in 2011, we built this cannery, and I've never built a cannery. And it was a lot of work. I mean, we had help. I had help. But we wanted to do this because a lot of these canneries out there, they don't want to do anything cool. As an example, we make this Just Juicy cat stew, and maybe Ashley, can you pass this around? So we make this really cool cat stew. It's turkey breasts, it's turkey thigh meat. We make it here in the U.S. And one of the cool things, and I emphasize that, we make that in the U.S. One of the cool things about our cans is we don't source that overseas. So most of it, or not most of it, all the cat food that looks like that, anybody know where it's made? Thailand. And why do they make it in Thailand?
Cheap labor.
Cheap labor. So I'm just going to take a guess. I don't know exactly, but I've heard it's probably they're making maybe $10, $15 a day. So it is very cheap labor, but there's a cost to that. And there's also a cool thing about making things here in the U.S. It does cost more to make it, but we're able to do things like have USDA inspected. That's USDA inspected and passed turkey breast, turkey thigh meat. It's cooked in its own juices. We don't use things like carrageenan. And that's what we're able to do with our own cannery. That's one of the main reasons why we built that. And you can see, there's some of the cuts of meat, the asparagus, we chop our own asparagus, so it really is a cool thing. And I love to take people there, and I actually like to have them eat the food because it is human grade. So, I know I'm talking about kibble and I'm talking about cans because that's what we make, but I've been in pet retail for a long time, and I truly do believe in raw. I've sold raw for a long time. Out in California, we've been selling raw for, before it was even popular. So you really have to talk to people about it. And raw is great because it's not processed, it's not cooked. So you retain vitamins, you retain protein, things like that. You also have a lot of moisture. Cans have a lot of moisture, that's why it's up there. That's great for cats. I'll stop for a quick second and ask a quick question. Why are cans, why are raw so good for cats? Anybody know?
They're all carnivores.
That's definitely one thing. What's another thing? You have moisture. Why is that moisture so important?
They don't naturally drink water.
They don't, because they come from the desert and they evolved to eat prey, like a lizard or a mouse, and that's how they would get their water, as an example. Freeze-dried, less processed, and what I'm going to talk about our kibble is oven-baked. So oven-baked is a lot different than extruded. So we talked about that extruded food is made fast, it's under pressure, it uses steam to do that, and there's some disadvantages to that in terms of nutrition. A quick way or easy way I like to explain baked versus extruded is, has anyone ever microwaved a steak?
Raw or fully cooked?
Let's start raw.
Or like reheating.
What's that?
Instead of, reheating it basically.
Reheating it. Has anyone ever done it though?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens?
Oh, it completely destroys the texture. It's a weird, yeah.
It's rubbery, right? And
I mean, you don't eat, I just did it to experiment.
to experiment. Okay. But if you cut into it, it's actually gray, right? It no longer has that nice pink color. It's not juicy anymore. That's actually the protein getting denatured, and the way a microwave, I mean, you guys probably know this, but a microwave kind of cooks from the inside out, uses water molecules to heat up the food. Extrusion actually cooks from the inside out as well, but it uses pressure and steam. Now, if I took that steak and I grilled it, what would happen?
Cooking from the outside.
Yes, and how does that steak turn out?
Juicy.
Juicy,
Tender.
tender, has color to it, right? Baking is a lot more like grilling a steak than it is microwaving because you are actually using pretty high heat from the outside, but it's from the outside in. And actually that inside of each kibble never gets that hot comparatively to extruded food. So extruded food, because of that pressure, inside out cooking, probably gets to be about 250 degrees in each kibble. With a baked food, you're talking probably about 160 degrees. So there is a huge, huge difference. I'm going to talk about a lot of the benefits related to that. Yeah, that would be great. If you don't mind. One more. So these are the 5 benefits to baking. One is you can put a lot more fresh meat in there, so you're talking about 40% versus 20% in the average extruded kibble. There are some benefits I'm going to talk about, but one quick one is with more fresh meat, you're able to keep the calcium and phosphorus levels right where they should be, and I'll talk about that more. Go back, please. Thank you. The other thing, I talked about vitamins. We're not losing the vitamins like with extrusion. On average, with an extruded food, you lose about 40% of those vitamins. On the protein side, you lose about 20% of the amino acids. With the baking, you just don't have that. Another cool thing with a baked food, because there's so much fresh meat, we don't have to add natural flavor. So has anyone ever looked at a bag of food, looked at the ingredients, and seen that natural flavor on the bag of food?
Yeah.
Do you ever ask yourself, what is that? So here's a quick little, I guess, analogy or question. Like, how would you guys feel if you went to a sandwich shop and you ordered a turkey sandwich and they put something on there that looked like turkey, but then they have this bottle of natural flavor? And they squirt that on there, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, why are you putting natural flavor on there? Isn't that turkey breast? Well, yeah, it's part turkey breast. You get the point. So if you have enough meat in the food, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. And we could pass this around, but I think this is very important to see and feel. Like that is Lotus oven baked. And this is, maybe we'll start on this side. This is an extruded food. And as you guys pass that around, smell it. It smells different. It smells like dog food as an example. When you smell the baked food, it doesn't. It smells a lot different. It's a lot more wholesome. So we don't have to add this natural flavor. Now what natural flavor is you take proteins and you hydrolyze them. Unfortunately, when you hydrolyze a protein, you actually get compounds like MSG. Anyone heard of MSG? Yeah, that gives me a headache if I get like some Chinese food that has too much in it. So obviously something you don't really want to have in your pet's food, as an example. So we don't have to do that. A really cool thing is this thing called starch gelatinization, and what that means is a starch cook. And basically, with a baked food, that starch cook is about 50% less than an extruded food. And to break it down, the higher that starch cook is, the more starch the dog or cat will get from the food. So, what would be a disadvantage to having a big load of starch go into your dog or cat's digestive system?
It would probably create an imbalance and give them diabetes. They would probably have like a leptin problem where they, with that much glucose, it would make so much glycogen that they would get fat and they would.
That's a great point.
Starch.
Yes, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but having these big jumps in glucose, yeah, it makes it harder to control weight. Maybe things like long-term diabetes could start. So you definitely want to not have that happen with your dog or cat food. So very, very important. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. I just want to talk quickly about meat versus meal. Does anybody know the difference between chicken and chicken meal? Yes.
Chicken is inclusive of water.
Say that again.
Chicken is inclusive of water.
Uh-huh. So chicken meal is chicken without the water? Okay. Does everybody agree with that? No? You say no. Why?
I think chicken meal includes bones and beaks and toenails and
I wouldn't say that, so I'll stop it there, because I don't want to create a frenzy on chicken meal. But I do want to educate people. I love to educate people. I mean, we use chicken meal in some of our recipes, but I want to emphasize it is, and I'll pass this around, this is chicken meal. It's not just chicken with the water taken out, they take the frame of a chicken and they grind it down and they cook it. So what it is inclusive of is, there is meat on here, but there's also bone, there's cartilage, there's collagen in here. So it's all those things that make up chicken meal. And you would be so kind, Ashley, to pass that around. You guys could actually feel it and see the difference. But the bottom line, if you look up at that chart, fresh chicken is a lot more bioavailable. You get more protein out of it. So if you look at chicken as an example, if you take human grade chicken fresh, it's 91 to 94% protein delivery. And if you turn it into a meal, it is now 63 to 75. So we move on from there. Now, a big thing, because that bone is in there, you actually get a lot less ash with a chicken or with fresh chicken. And why is that important? Because you're going to reduce your calcium and your phosphorus. Why is that important with dogs and cats to have a balanced calcium and phosphorus? Anybody know?
Kidneys?
Kidneys is a big one. If you have too much phosphorus, it could definitely affect the kidneys. Does anyone have large dogs? A few large dogs. Okay, so actually if you have an abundance of calcium and phosphorus, what can happen with a large dog is the bones grow too fast. And what happens if the bones grow too fast? That can happen. What else? Pain, joints. So the bones can actually outpace the hip sockets, and you get things like hip dysplasia as an example. So we definitely want to keep that in balance. We can go to the next slide. And then these are formulas that are actually very balanced for that in terms of calcium and phosphorus. They're actually all below 1% calcium and below 0.85 on the phosphorus, and that will definitely help alleviate those problems from happening in the future. Yes?
What do you consider, how many pounds is a large dog?
I consider around 65 up, yeah.
I have a large dog.
Yeah.
I just was never quite sure.
Yeah. And another thing, what's up there is also keeping the fat levels moderate. You don't have to have a lot of fat. And fat can also accelerate that growth of a dog, which is not beneficial. Put extra weight on the dog's body and the joints as another example. That's just a quick little example. If you took Lotus chicken and you compared it to a vet diet that they sell for large breeds, if you look, the calcium and phosphorus is pretty similar. But if you looked at the ingredients, you would be, I would say, a little bit horrified at some of the ingredients that you would get from the vet foods. I don't want to bash it too much, but wholesome ingredients, I'm a big believer. And here's a good example. So that's Lotus Senior. That's our senior diet, but it's great for special needs. And you can see the ingredients up there. So we have chicken, whole ground rye, chicken liver, pollock, whole ground ground rice. And if you compare that to a kidney diet, you have bruised rice, pork fat, chicken, egg product, and flaxseed. So a lot less meat in there, right? That will work for kidneys, but how well is the dog going to do in terms of general health? So I want to go through this a little bit. And if you look here, so we have 40% fresh meat. The protein is really moderate at 18. But if you look, the ash is only 4%, and what that translates into is the phosphorus is actually only 0.55. That is that is the same level as you would find in a prescription diet, but the food is so much better. And keeping minerals down in general works great for liver issues. That's another example. If you look up there, the fat levels are really, really low in this food. It's only 8%. So if your dog has pancreatitis, this will work very, very well. So just a great food for special needs, just besides seniors.
Daron, I
Yes.
have Sandy and Donna. They're in our audience. And they are currently, I think, Butch, Cassidy, and Sundance. And they have bladder stones, and they painted. What would you recommend to them for them?
I would actually recommend this diet. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I love to tell stories because it's real. So there was a manager in their store, and she told me her dog, her pug, had bladder stones. And I said, you got to try the senior. And she did not even have to have surgery on her dog, and the crystals cleared up.
Of course, I had surgery, so.
No, and I don't want to tell another story, so I'll stop there. But I know what you mean. I've gone through it as well. But she was so ecstatic, and it really does work. It's so cool how a good food can make such a big change like that.
Your cans are also good.
They are very good. They're very low in phosphorus because we don't have bone in there, and we cook it in its own juices. We use very lean cuts of meat, so the cans are a
But the
good
cool thing
choice.
is that it doesn't have the carrageenan and the gorgons. And those are really harsh on the kidneys. So this is one of the few can lines and we're really trying to search for limited gums in their foods, and Lotus has achieved that.
Yes. Now, phosphorus is an example, protein is an example. Very, very close, but much better ingredients. There's some made about urinary tract, and just in general, the minerals are going to be a lot lower, so that will definitely help for sure.
Okay.
Pancreatitis, it's really about keeping the fat low, and I know Tom is going to talk about this with raw, but I'm a big believer in not having a lot of fat in the diet, and I think too many dogs and cats, they're getting food that has too much fat in there, and it's overworking the pancreas, and the pancreas gets inflamed, and now they have pancreatitis. And I see this.
And Jennifer and John has their dog, which does have pancreatitis. So, and it's, I think it's Remington?
Yes.
And Remington is an 8-year-old Bichon.
Mhm.
So does this help you understand a little bit more? We'll go more into the raw side too. So do you have any questions for Daron while?
So something like that would be like the Lotus Senior. Do you make that in cans?
No, but all of our cans here, all the cans are 5% fat, about 10% protein. Some are higher at like 13, 14% protein. So that ratio is just right. They won't get a lot of fat, they get a lot of moisture and the nice USDA inspected fast protein. So that would be a good choice too.
And I just want to touch base, just real quick before I forget it, and I will forget it. When we talked about vaccine, any dog over the age of 5 require titer, especially if they're having pancreatitis or any kidney or organ issue. They should not be vaccinated. Make sure you find a vet that will do a titer, and then that will test the level of vaccine in your animal and will not cause it to go in worse. Sorry, I had.
Excellent. It's good. It's all good. Let's move on. I don't want to run through this whole thing, but the bottom line is there's a lot of vitamin loss with extrusion. And if you look at the very bottom, if you guys can see it, there's a 90% loss of vitamin C when you extrude food. Now, I have a little disclaimer. That is not to say good extruded food is deficient. They know about these losses when you extrude. But when you put in things like spinach and blueberries and cranberries, why do you put those kind of things into a food? Or ingredients, they're not really things, fruits and vegetables. Why do you put fruits and vegetables into food? Vitamins. What else? Or what, in particular, why are fruits and vegetables so important? Vitamin C is one. What was that? Antioxidants. That's a great answer. And you know what? If you answer a question, maybe we can give some stuff away to make this a little fun.
Yeah, I got you.
So how about you want to try a can or something? Dog can. All right. We have a winner.
Do you have?
Oh, look, she's got it right here.
You were going to say something?
Fructooligosaccharides that help find, what do they call, probiotics.
So you're getting really technical. You want to try a can now too?
We're going to talk about
Where was I? Okay, so antioxidants, they help with things like preventing cancer, and really they truly do a good job at doing that. And I believe that's why when you feed a dog or cat fruits and vegetables, like actually with our dogs, I like to give them like apples and things like that, just raw, you know. And I think it does really help with the longevity of your dogs and cats. Yeah. Our cat won't eat too much, but the dogs won't. Moving on. So protein or amino acids. Amino acids make up protein. Here we're taking a look at lysine, which is essential amino acid that the dog or cat needs. If a cat does not get enough of this, they could get cat herpes as an example. But if you look at this chart, basically that white dot to the black dot is the loss of lysine. So the white dot is actually the total lysine, but what the dog or cat can actually use is that black dot, which is the available lysine. So you know how we were talking about denaturing in the beginning, like the steak turning gray? This is an example of denaturing. So, okay. Technology is very good. All right, moving on. So we also have tested Lotus. So why is baked better? Because we wanted to make sure it was better by actually testing it. So this was done in a third-party lab. This is Lotus Puppy as an example, and I highlighted one of these nutrients as lysine available or available lysine. And you can see we took 5 samples before baking. It starts with that 1.71, and then it goes after that 1.61, and then you can see that average. See that average of 1.57. I want to do the pen there. See that? Okay. And then all of the 5 numbers after that are after baking. So this is Lotus Puppy after baking from the same batch, and you can see we got an average of 1.588. You guys see that?
Sorry.
We get the picture. Now, I know it's a tiny bit higher, but it's an average. So what we're talking about is there's no loss. So we're not losing lysine. So that's pretty cool, right? So if you're going to pick a kibble to feed with raw, or you definitely want to do a baked, because it's just so much better nutritionally. Okay, we could go to the next slide. One more. And I just like this visual. So that's an actual picture of extruding, and those sprayers are the flavors getting sprayed on. Pretty gross, right? And you don't have to take my word for it. You could actually go on YouTube. They have this thing like how it's made. They actually show you how they make extruded food, and they show this whole process. And if you put extruded food on a napkin, I guarantee you it will turn like all greasy. And it's just not a very wholesome way. We talked about this, that starch gelatinization. This was actually done at Kansas State, and one of the graduate students wanted to see what was the difference between baked and extruded, and what he wanted to measure was that starch cook and how it gets delivered to the dog and cat. And you can see he did 3 recipes. One didn't have any fresh meat, one had 10, one had 20. But look, every single instance of extrusion, you have 100% starch delivery. You guys see that? Pretty crazy, right?
Only you would love it.
But I don't know if you guys saw, it was like half with the baked. Okay, so our cannery, we make lots of cans. So ingredients matter. And a can, I'm not going to lie to you, a can is processed. It uses heat to cook it. But what makes the difference with cans is what you put into it. And I have this little illustration up here because there's been a lot of recalls, and I'd like to really emphasize that we use human grade meat. It's USDA passed and inspected. It hasn't been thrown on the floor or it's too old or anything like that. It's very wholesome stuff. That doesn't happen with all cans. In fact, there was a recent recall with excessive thyroid hormone. Now, how would you get thyroid hormone into a can of beef?
Looks like it comes from the neck.
It comes from the neck, so that's called gullet meat. Why don't we give her a prize?
Oh, I have a
So it comes from the neck, it's gullet meat. Now when they take that out, they actually, in many cases, accidentally get the thyroid. And what does the thyroid have in it? It has thyroid hormone, right? And that's actually why you can never buy gullet meat in the grocery store, because that can potentially happen. So the meat that we use is that chuck part right there. It's human grade. That's where it comes from the cow. It's just a lot safer if you think about that. And I'd like to emphasize, our can, I will say this, our cans are not the cheapest, but you do get what you pay for. And I think that's a very important ideal to keep in mind, especially with pet food. I mean, you definitely, for ourselves, we definitely want to make sure we eat wholesome things and make sure it's good ingredients. We definitely want to make sure, I know all you guys being here, you're just making a statement that that's very important to you. And there's some actual pictures, like there's our pork. You can see it's like a pork chop. You know, we slice it ourselves. Our pollock, it comes from Alaska. Pollock's really cool because it's sustainable. It's a smaller fish. It doesn't have the lead and mercury like a tuna would. Tunas aren't so sustainable. That's a picture of my boat. No, just kidding. No, that's not our fishing boat. That is a fishing boat that catches the pollock. It's actually the boat that catches the pollock. And pollock's cool because it is certified sustainable. And like I said, it's a smaller fish. They reproduce fast. It's a lot of cool benefits to that. I just want to talk briefly about some of our recipes. Like these are our made a mistake on my PowerPoint. These are not the canned pates. These are our dog loaf formulas. But they all are single source proteins. So we have cool ingredients like whole sardine just ground up into a can, a rabbit, just whole rabbit ground up into a can, no carrageenan, no guar gum, no xanthan gum. Cool thing we did with these recipes is they are a loaf, but the fruits and vegetables are whole in there. So you can see like the chunks of asparagus and the blueberries and the sweet potatoes. So that's a nice little touch there. Those are our stews for dogs. So 50% meat in these stews, 10% protein, 4% fat. So you can see all of our cans are very low fat, so great for that pancreatitis issue. No water added. So everything kind of cooks in its own juices. And I'll show a quick video I'll show you guys of us hand packing actually in a little bit. That's for just juicy, actually higher protein, 14% protein, 5% fat. Very low carbs, great for dogs with diabetes, pancreatitis, etc. Our pates for cats, high moisture pate, moderate protein at 10%, 5% fat, low carbs, cool things like clams in there, so we get clams for taurine, green lit mussel for natural source of glucosamine chondroitin.
While you're on the cans, I just want to stress, when you're feeding cans, your cat's palate is very sensitive. So as they, when you first get your little kitty, try to introduce your pates, your shredded, your stews, so that way they can adjust and rotate onto another type of food, another type of protein. Don't keep your dog or cat on the same protein forever and ever, because they will become sensitive to it and will not eat it.
Good point.
So, I'm not just touting Lotus, but they have a great balance on their canned food. You know, you can get the loaf, you can get the pate, you can get the shredded. So introduce those early on into your pet stuff. Sorry.
No, that's a great point. And one thing I'll add, if a dog or cat is, I don't want to call it addicted, but some, especially cats, can get kind of addicted to kibble. And we make of a big cat, but I'm a big believer in canned, I'm a big believer in raw, but sometimes that texture, especially for cats, even for dogs, that texture can become addicting to them. So it's very important. I mean, that's a very important point to talk about in
Some
terms
of
of
the
that
best that
texture.
they've worked with on their cats as an older cat, and they need it, and it's got diabetes, it's overweight. And so cats will, they're one of the few animals that will starve themselves to death.
Yeah.
They won't eat. So because of the addiction to carbohydrates, I think we touched base on 101, where cats don't have the protein or the enzyme amylase to break down carbs, so they can get highly addicted to a kibble. So you can do kibble as a treat, but 75% of your cat's diet should be wet versus either canned or raw.
And they like that texture.
Yeah.
Sometimes they like that crunchiness, that mouthfeel, so that's another part of it.
You can can mice. Why can't you can mice?
I can mice. I mean, just a show of hands, but you guys be grossed out about
No,
that?
it's
No.
okay.
We have one.
It's normal.
It is normal, and actually, what's cool, I don't want to digress too much, what's cool about mice is they're very high in taurine, so cats really need taurine. If they don't get enough, they'll actually die, so it's actually a really good protein, but maybe it would be okay, based on the show of hands. So, I was talking about our Just Juicy. We actually hand-packed that here, not here in Kansas City, but here in California, or over in California. We're the only ones that do that, and we think it's pretty cool because we're bringing jobs instead of sending jobs overseas. We're not shipping it overseas to bring it over here. It's just a cool thing, we think. Urinary tract, I'm a big believer in getting a lot of moisture in the urinary tract, or preventing urinary tract disease, especially with cats. Get that moisture in there, it helps flush it out, helps keep those minerals flowing. And cats, a lot of cats do not drink enough water, so it's very, very important to do that. But on the technical side, the phosphorus is very, very low in our cans, as an example, and that's one of the minerals you want to keep low. The calcium you want to keep low, and they are pretty low. Yeah, why don't we do a quick little...
Sorry.
There is, but I can talk. So this is not our cannery, this is some of our artwork. But today, or this day, we are making our pollock stew for cats. And you can see it running along the line there. We call it micro cannering because it is only one line. But you can see the boxes of pollock, you can see it's steaming grade, it's fillets, it's stuff you would make at home. We actually take all those fillets, we steam them, which will break them into smaller pieces. But what we do, see all that broth in there? We actually save that. So that's actually what makes the gravy of our cans, is that broth. So we separate the meat or the fish, we'll mix a little carrots with that, and then we'll set that broth aside to actually go back into the can to make the gravy. You can see a lot of the stuff we do by hand. So we set that broth aside, and then we'll take things like, there's some of the fish with the carrots, you can see the texture, and then we literally, every single can, we weigh it, we hand pack it. So it's very labor intensive, but the reason why we do that, it keeps the look of that can, it keeps the pieces of fish in place. And we talked about texture with cats. Some cats really love that chunky texture, and it keeps that in there. I missed that part, but I know what it is. So we had olive oil, we had salmon oil in there. Our vitamins are made in Europe. Just all this cool stuff that goes into that gravy. And then there's a gravy getting filling into the can. From there, the can gets sealed in the seaming machine. And it will come out, and then we'll do our quality checks. So it's coming out of the seamer right there. We'll do our quality checks. We'll check the temperature. We'll check the seam of the can. We'll check the head space. And that's very important to make sure there's a vacuum in that can. And that's what she's doing right there. That's the head space. I know this because I've worked that station myself, so I like to be hands-on. Like I said, I never knew canning, but I definitely enjoy it. It's fun.
And that's Daron.
That is me. So we have our own lab. We can take the food, we could grind it up in the blender like that. We could test the protein, we could test the fat. It's all done in this machine, that blue machine there. It's called a FOSS machine. It's pretty cool. Within a minute or so, it will tell us the fat, the protein, the moisture. Definitely a cool machine there. Oh, okay. So that's our micro cannery.
I didn't push it.
That's all right. No, I think we got the gist of it. We got the gist of it. We do make a kibble for cats. Like I said, we make it, but I'm a big believer in moist food or wet food for cats. But if you're going to feed a dry, a baked is the best way to go because of the meat content, and because of the meat content, it will actually produce the acidic urine of 6.5 to 6.7. I think that's it. That is it.
Thank you, Daron.
You're welcome.
So I've been said, but my name is Tom Allen, and I work for a very small family-owned raw manufacturing company called OC Raw. Literally, it is a husband and a wife. There's about 6 people in a factory. There's a sales manager and there's a rep, and that's our company. You could put 3 of our factories inside this auditorium. We literally make smaller batches. We make them basically to order, and we do all of that. Daron touched on a lot of great points. Quality. In the raw world, it's not so much about quality, it's also about safety and making sure that we're doing everything as safe as possible. I'm very excited to be tag teaming with Alex on this one and with Delena as well. I've worked with both of them before, and when it comes to nutrition, these two know more about it than I will ever know about it. But I do know a little bit about raw, so I will be highlighting a lot of the raw talk on this one, and they will be helping me all through the way. Just a quick thing on how I got into it. It's not too dissimilar to what Delena was talking about. I rescue golden retrievers. I'm a golden retriever fan. I do have a kennel in Colorado. We found homes for about 2,000 golden retrievers since 2003. This is Tucker, my current guy. He's just turned 15 and he has cancer. And my last guy, Summit, lived to be 15 and a half, cancer as well. Patrick, before that, was 16 and a half, cancer as well. So you can kind of see where making a move towards nutrition was something that was, I really didn't have a choice in the matter. I was on a collision course with it. So working for the Barkery and cultivating the faculties that I did to understand nutrition, and then having an opportunity to go work for a raw company, and I'm very glad that Daron had the slide with the pyramid, is a great opportunity to further that and to, as I call it, spread the message a lot. So that's how I ended up here. And we're going to be handing this all around just so you know.
We only have one. So I feed raw to my dogs, and Ruby is one of my reasons why he was diagnosed with cancer, and instead of going to a vet and treating him with chemo and chemicals, I treated him 100% naturally with a raw diet, herbs, supplements, everything raw you can think of. That dog taught me how to heal. So they are my reason for feeding raw, so I can help other dogs along my way. So gut health. Gut health is extremely important in our dogs and cats. 70% of their immune system resides in their gut. So if we have a healthy gut, the rest of our body can thrive. Same with our pets. So we feed their gut to keep them healthy. Reasons for feeding raw. These are just a few of the reasons why raw is extremely important in a pet's diet. And we're going to touch on a lot of these throughout the rest of the presentation. So take a look at this picture to know if your dog or cat is a candidate. Look at the jawline, and the teeth, the shape of the teeth. What do you notice?
There's sharp teeth.
Sharp teeth, exactly, yes. And their jaws are hinged. So their jaw is not designed like ours to grind back and forth. Their jaw is an up and down chomping motion with sharp teeth that are designed to shred meat. So yes, they are a perfect candidate for raw.
Who in here feeds raw? Oh, right on. Okay, what do you guys like about feeding raw? You'd be surprised how many people may make a move to raw just because of the pooper scooper thing.
My dog thinks it's delicious.
That's it, okay?
She feels like a man.
She feels that's a first. That's a dog. There was one more.
Well, I know it's kind of gross, but the less food thing, but after it's been like in the yards for a couple days, it's been white. And it like turns into a powder.
What did you think? We had a discussion about that.
I'm not kidding you, we have like preserved people in vegetable, and we have to pick up, we have 2 dogs in our yard.
We're going to get ahead of ourselves here, but I'm going to tell you, we love talking about food. And we're going to hit on that in this presentation, and it's great. We have visuals.
Yes.
And the best part, now you laugh, but food tells you a lot, so I'm glad that you said that. Let me tell you a little bit about raw in general, why I like raw, and we're going to talk about just sort of some of the things to think about when you're choosing a raw food. What I like is that's all that's in there. It's meat, bone, and organ, and these are listed in order of what's most prevalent to least. And then you've got your fat, your fruits, and your vegetables. So your meat. You got all your vitamins and minerals coming from your meat. You've got a great source of protein. You've got organ, which is rich with vitamins and minerals. You get bone for your calcium and more trace minerals. The fat, good fat. I mean, you're talking coming from trimmings and skins. You get fruits and vegetables. And these are all raw, so they're just absolutely packed with phytonutrients and fiber. You also get some carbs, and you also get more vitamins and minerals. And the thing that I love about raw is because you're getting all of that with these ingredients so simply put together. And for the most part, you don't need to add any synthetic to it. You will see some of them that do, but there are a lot of them that don't. So when considering raw, meat is the #1 ingredient. It's what your dog is consuming the most in this diet. So the first thing I would remember that I like to consider is the quality of the meat that you put in is something that you should ask your Barkery nutrition specialist. it's not necessarily, well, go to the next slide. I like to talk about sourcing, but the sourcing that I love to talk about most is actually the source of the animal, the source of the cut, or the quality of the meat. Obviously, a lot of raw companies will source, and they're getting more and more regional. Daron talked about steak. I love talking about steak. We'll just pick on beef tonight. You know, if you had a chance to buy your steaks that you were going to grill and not microwave, would you like to get them from a local farm? Would you like to get them regionally? It would seem to me that you would feel that that would be a higher quality than sourcing that from a behemoth beef manufacturing facility. When it comes to raw companies, there are raw companies that you can basically rest assured that the quality you're getting is coming from a locally sourced farm. He touched on it as well, antibiotic-free, hormone-free. You'll hear things like pasture-raised and grass-fed. You can get all of this, which is stuff that you would like to buy for yourself and your family. You can get that in your dog food. And that is something that you should hold raw foods. I mean, raw foods, let's be realistic. They are a little bit on the pricey side compared to a lot of the rest of the dog food. So why shouldn't you put that expectation on it? And you can. I like to talk a little bit, and I apologize in advance. I tend to ramble. Delena's probably going to make a little joke here. When I get going on raw food and a lot of these things, I tend to fly off in different directions. And I'm not used to having a deck, so I'm going to do my best to stick around that. But the reason I like to talk about the quality of the meat is because it's the #1 ingredient and how I stress all this. How many people know what an Atwater equation is? How many people are familiar with the calories that a human being will pull out of a gram of fat versus a gram of protein? You guys are going to get a lot of free food.
Oh, no. I think, I'm trying to remember, because I used to know it from Weight Watchers. I think it's something like 4 grams versus like 11.
The Atwater for human beings is you will pull about 3 times the calories out of a gram of fat as you will a gram of protein. In dogs, it's about 2.46, 47, depending on the exact number, but really you can just say 2.5 times the calories. So when you're choosing a raw food, you can get quality choice cuts of meat in this food that we just talked about, and you can establish.
Let's raffle.
And if you don't, yeah, and you guys can barter these as long as you go to the barkery. One of the things about our company that I pride ourselves in is that we dedicate ourselves to the quality of the meat because it's that #1 ingredient. We use muscle cut when we choose our beef. We use filet and our fish. We actually use the same pot that he's talking about. What that does is it gives you a higher protein and a lower fat, so your dogs are pulling more metabolic calories out of their diet. You can see across the raw spectrum in a lot of raw foods, that protein and that fat can level out. I mean, let's be realistic. You can take a whole turkey and you can start the process and it comes out the other side of the machine. You can certainly make a patty with, but it's not just the meat. One of the things about our turkey, we just use drumstick when we make it. So, #1 thing is to talk about that quality, sourcing, and sourcing within the animal. And then USDA certified human grade. Literally, like what Daron talking about, if you saw the meat come in, one thing I like to stress about the USDA certification is that that requires a USDA signature on the supply side. It's an added step. It ensures safety, it also ensures quality. And when you're dealing with raw food, that is a huge bonus. So USDA certified, and there's a number of certifications that, depending on you can get all of that when you talk to your Barkery nutrition specialist. Okay, that meat, bone, and organ on one side, everyone will talk about, sort of sits in its functional silo, and then on the other side you have your fruits and vegetables. Those are combined when we make our recipes. You'll hear, my mix is a 95-5, or mine's a 90-10, or mine's an 80-20. I would ask you what that means, but it's written right up there behind me. The percent animal parts to the percent non. So the second thing is, when you're talking to your Barkery nutrition specialist, you have to, they'll ask you the questions, but where do you fit in this gamut? Because on the 95% side, what do you think is going to happen to those diets? You're going to have much more meat inclusion, so theoretically, what should you see more of in there? Probably higher protein. And then when you move across the gamut, you end up on the A20, you got more fruits and vegetables. This is going to be your diet, so they're going to be a little higher in fiber. And where your dog fits and what's best for your dog is about as unique to this as your dog. I mean, every dog is different. Every dog will have specific needs. You can start generally, but when you filter it down, there are raw diets that can meet your dog's specific needs. Mine, for example, is 90-10 in the middle. The one thing I like to brag about is the protein we talked about. It can be a lot higher than some of the 95.5 guys because we use a choice cut of meat, just like Daron does when he makes his kibble, which is one of the best kibbles that you can get. So, just in short, there's an array of diets out there, and then they can certainly help you figure out where you need to start.
Rotation is extremely important too. You don't have to stick with just one of these. We encourage lots of rotation within the line and within the proteins as well. So.
Oh, the extras. I love talking about that. I love talking about all of it. Okay, the first extra, synthetic vitamin packs. There are companies that will have synthetics in their raw food. There are those of us that wonder why. They're probably there because they have to have them in order to meet the guidelines in order to have a complete and balanced meal. For some people, that is okay. But for a lot of people, not having a synthetic vitamin pack in there, they say if you're going to feed real and raw and go through that top of the pyramid, why would you want anything that's synthetic into it? You can have one or the other. There are plenty of foods that don't. And then the natural extras. When you apply heat or pressure to any molecule, you can change it. That's basic chemistry. And so one of the things about raw food that I particularly love is that you're basically pouring a raw ingredient into a giant mixer, and then you're just freezing. And then when you thaw it out, there's no heat or pressure that's been applied to that. So most of the therapeutic qualities that are in that ingredient are still there. So if it's something that may benefit your dog, specifically those that may have some physiological challenges, it's a wonderful way to get that in terms of, some people will supplement their kibbles and things. You can get that in the raw diet. There are companies that are putting raw honey. I've seen pumpkin, I've seen goat milk. These are all huge digestive aids. The honey has 500 live enzymes per tablespoon. The goat milk has probiotic strains. Let's hook.
I'll try this one.
You know, that's always coming.
That's good stuff. That's happy
I
stuff.
know. We did this earlier today, and it was really funny, and it's completely lost my train. Okay. So there are also companies now that are putting a lot of pumpkin, which is high in soluble fiber, building those into their diet. So if your dog has digestive challenges and you decide you want to move in the direction of raw food, you can get something in there that will help them. There are those with cranberry. Cranberry is a wonderful ingredient because it can slowly acidify urine, which is good for UTI opportunities. There's also a recent vet school study that showed that cranberry in its natural state can block E. coli from bonding to the epithelial tissue in the bladder. So with healthy urine flow, cranberry is a great one for dogs that may be chronically facing UTI issues. This couple I figure are the pancreatitis folks. Another thing about some of these raw diets, I know for one, there's one out there that's only 2% fat on a per fed basis, which is a wonderful, because the thing about the prescriptions that we touched on is you can get the low fat that's great for the pancreatitis, but what do you forget when you do that? You lose all the, what's the word of the night? Nutrition.
Yeah.
You lose everything in there. So you can get a raw diet, no processing whatsoever, with extremely low fat.
High moisture.
And very high
moisture, the better.
So we're moving to the next slide. I told you I liked to rhyme. Okay, who's heard of HPP? All right, tell me, what is HPP? Oh, it's written on the wall. What is, okay. HPP is a process. It involves an immense amount of pressure. We've got some samples out here.
That's not HPP.
This is not.
No, that's.
HPP is a process that was designed to basically kill all the bacteria, anything that's HPP. In the raw dog food world, it was built in as a safety measure. And there are those that say the pros of this is that there's no bacteria in it. There are those like me that say the cons of it is there's no bacteria in it. On the non-HPP side, there are those companies like mine, and we're going to talk about poop again. When you don't HPP, or when you do HPP, you kill all the bad bacteria. I get it, that's great. But what do you also kill? Exactly. This is a creature, dogs, that will eat its own poop. They will eat each other's poop. They will eat rabbit poop. They eat those, I call them highway waffles, those poor little creatures that weren't dodgy enough to make it across. They eat all of that stuff. But what happens from the bottom of the stomach to the yard, the health in that area of your dog is paramount. And so HPP, again, you can find non-HPP and HPP products.
And you can tell the HPP versus the non-HPP, like your bologna, that's HPP.
Has two
That's the first.
are HPP.
This is not.
This is not. There's a huge difference. Not that there's anything wrong with any of them. It's just the difference in processing.
So the third thing after the extras and the quality is you need to decide if HPP is something that you want to do in your food. And like Alex talked about, it may be that you just want to rotate a non-HPP food through your diet, just regularly enough to keep the gut populated with all the bugs. Alex brought this up earlier. It's a great point. What's the age? 5? Roughly around the age of 5. Dogs will stop physiologically manufacturing all the little buggies that they need from the bottom of the stomach to maintain a healthy gut, which is why we drink kibble and things like that. So this is a wonderful way to keep your dog's gut healthy. Okay, bones and treats. Raw diets, we talked about how they have certain things built in. There's also you can also supplement your diets with raw stuff. Oh yeah, this is good.
We have some good stuff to show you. So,
Okay, one of my favorites, and this is because I rescue golden retrievers. This is a poor breed that is just, they scratch a lot. They chew on their feet in the springtime. They have skin and coat issues. You can feed literally whole, undressed sardines in the raw world. And this isn't something that you have to only use as a supplement when you're supplementing, say, a good kibble. You can do it in raw. You can do it anywhere. We have a lot of folks that buy these from us that will feed them as part of a regular canned diet and or their freeze dried.
And this is Alex's dog. We just took that stuff.
But the best part is when you get to the raw, like these sardines, they're riddled with DHA from the eyeballs and the brains, the glucosamine, the chondroitin from the entire skeletal system. They have rich in calcium. You get all of that great oily sardine meat. It is full of the entire omega fatty acid profile. So how many omega fatty acids are there? You guys? There's 22 of them. And we get a lot of the 3, 6, and the 9 because when you cold press, that's the first ones that come out. So like why do they make their extruded kibble? Because it's cheaper that way. This way you can give your dog a moderate amount of it and give them all of the therapeutic value that comes from it.
You can also feed treats like this in replacement of a meal. So if you're going to do like today, I gave my dogs a sardine instead of their dinner, and so they just won't get to eat when I get home tonight. But make sure if you're using these as a treat that you are balancing out your meals as well, because you don't want to overfeed because then they're going to be getting too much fat, pancreatitis, all of those problems. But these are wonderful treats that they can eat, and these are lamb meaty bones. I use these a lot as a meal replacement with my dogs. And they will eat the entire bone, meat, cartilage, fat, everything on it. So when I know you're talking about those, yeah, and we're going to talk more on that, but you can supplement that as a meal as well.
And for those of us that are raw feeders, one of the things that we love the most about being able to supplement with something that's so healthy and still raw is that it means that might be one less patty you're pulling out of a bag that you would feel is kind of pricey. So it's also a great way to amortize the cost of moving to a raw diet up over a little more time.
Rotational, it's rotational
Yeah.
feeding.
Yeah, I can tell you that my guys get a combination of those sardines, and they're going to talk about some other things, and pumpkin and all of those, and they get that twice a week in lieu of the patties.
And when you're looking at budget, one of the things that I always recommend to some of our customers, maybe raw doesn't fit into your budget, but you can at least do it once or twice a week. And then you can do your good quality kibble on the side. And then if budget is really, really tight, if you do a lower grade kibble, and nothing from Petco PetSmart, I would say incorporate a good quality kibble into that rotation, and then incorporate raw. Those are some, like Alex said, rotation is so important because we get all these allergy dogs in. What have you been feeding? Oh, chicken. How long has he been on chicken? Oh, since he was, a puppy. And guess what? Now he has an allergy to chicken. But his stomach is so sensitive because no rotation was done. It takes a little bit more work to get it to that point.
Also, when it comes to that, this is an excellent point. I haven't counted in the other company's bags, but I do know for a fact in ours, we do make you can find them, the little sliders.
Yeah.
Every company makes a sort of mid-range between their little grinds and rocks and their patties. The best part about these sliders is a 4-pound bag of there you
That's
go.
a dehydrated one, but the first.
This is what they look like raw. Well, this is what they look like when all the water's taken out of it. But you can buy these raw. And at the Barkery, it's around $23 or so. There's about 44 of those in a bag because it's a 4-pound bag. They're roughly 1.5 ounces each. So ask yourself, if someone just took your plate and kind of slid something aside and just put a little bit of spinach and some fruit and some vegetables, something very healthy, you can literally do one of these a night on your dog's kibble. Pull a little of the kibble out, like Alex was talking about in terms of balancing your calorie count, and get the benefit of having a raw meat, fruit, and vegetable, non-synthetic, no HPP, raw, right on your food, and it would last as long as your bag of kibble. And the kibble will last a little bit longer as you're pulling a little bit out. So it's an excellent point, Delena. I keep forgetting to make it because I've been feeding a lot, whatever. When you look at that freezer, don't let it scare you in a cost-prohibitive kind of way, because that's a great way to get a good kibble and to get a little bit of a raw, to get that action, little nutritional bump. Okay. Transition. You'll hear this a lot when you're talking to people at the bar. When you're moving from one kibble to the next, or you're moving from a kibble into something a little bit richer within the same line. When you're transitioning to raw, transition is absolutely imperative that you do this right. These two will talk a little bit more about the gut and what the implications are on the gut. But if you ate a baked chicken and bland rice diet all of the time for 7 years of your life on one of these kibbles, and someone said, you know what, we're going to do something that's going to be really healthy for you, and we're just going to give you some raw sushi and some vegetables and all these things that you've never had before, what do you think would happen?
Get sick.
Yeah, you probably have a little bit of an upset belly. Dogs aren't any different. So it's really smart to respect the transition. The Barkery nutrition folks will be able to help you build that based on their preliminary questions, what they put you on. Some general things to think about though when transitioning. It says choose one meat to start. I would tell you choose the meat that you're currently on. So if you're feeding a kibble that's predominantly chicken, go chicken raw. Don't introduce something like goat or rabbit because it's super healthy or cleansing or for whatever reason, because that new protein requires a whole healthy, stable gut in order to do. Going from chicken to chicken is a little easier. It says limit treats during transition. Just cut them out. My recommendation would be the system is going to have enough going on, getting from point A to B. Probably best to just let it work on getting everything it needs stable and to start absorbing and digesting raw. And we haven't mentioned the word absorption yet tonight.
No, we haven't.
That is probably one of the key parts of feeding raw. And we probably talk a little bit more about it when we get to our poop slide that we love so much. When you move from something that's highly processed to something that's minimally processed to something that's barely processed at all, what happens is the absorption of some of that overly processed stuff, which is all the way down here. So picture this as a volume of food. And if they're absorbing almost none of it, they're voiding almost all of it. And then you go up to something that's a really minimally processed kibble, they absorb more and they void less. Absorption is key. Absorption is how you get the nutritional profile that is in all of these ingredients actually in to your dogs and down to a cellular level, doing everything it's supposed to talk to all of the things that these guys have mentioned tonight. Skin.
Building the gut. That's
There
why
you go.
building the gut is so,
Sorry, we need.
building the gut is so important so they can absorb their food. It makes their food more bioavailable when their gut is healthy.
Oh, and then water. Always lots and lots of water when you're moving from one diet to another, even when you're transitioning from one kibble to another. Having a lot of fluids in the system is one thing. It helps us. If you're having issues with anything digestively, your doctor will tell you drink a lot of fluids. Dogs are no different. And when you're moving from one of these to the other, the system can go through a little bit of a system shock. Alex will talk about that in a second. Having a lot of water helps them keep that process going. Oh, thank you. And the bowl, stainless steel bowls. Obviously the best place to do the water. You don't like that.
Because if you use a plastic bowl that's coated, your water is sitting in there 24/7, it's going to break down the melamine, and then you're going to put it into your animal. So stainless steel or glass is fine. I know ceramic, again, it goes to that, you make this really pretty ceramic bowl for your animal. It's okay for food to some degree, not for water, because that does break down and will get into your cat or dog, and guess what? Kidneys, so watch your water bowl.
Yeah, those fancy green bowls with the cool tall prints at the bottom are made with something. Okay. Here.
Another step when transitioning, if you've got a finicky eater or a dog with a really upset tummy, fast them the night before. That way their system has a chance to clear out. They're going to be good and hungry the next morning, and they're more likely to eat for you. So go slow with older dogs and dogs with a compromised immune system, dogs that might have cancer or other ailments. Go slow with them because their gut is not healthy enough for that yet. So adding in digestive enzymes, pre and probiotics is extremely important to help them absorb and digest their food. Be positive, okay? Sometimes the dog's they might get diarrhea, they might get an upset tummy. Don't be scared that it's the food. It's not the food, it's their system resetting to absorb this new food. So if you are apprehensive about a transition, your dog is going to pick up on that. So be positive for your dog and for yourself. It'll make it a lot easier on both of you.
All right, are you guys ready for this next slide? I hope so. We are now going to talk about foods. So Tom used a really good word. He said, void. It's good. They crapped it up. What am I going to say?
We practiced this team effort a number of times, and I swear the poop slide got all of the attention. It is the best. Okay, just put them all up.
All right.
Okay, so highly processed, like a lot of kibbles. Minimally processed, like your raw. The difference you can see, this looks like the digestive tract of your dog for a reason. It's because the system has absorbed most of the nutrients out of it. That's why it has the shape. This one is it's a whole lot more to it. It doesn't look like the system. It looks like the system just kind of forced it out to make room for what was coming through. The volume is so much higher. You can totally see how in a raw diet, this is a poop that's telling you that your dog is absorbing the nutrients. It's most of what's, like she said, bioavailability of the food. This is one that's telling you that your dog is voiding most of what it's eating.
This is not Lotus dog food, okay?
Okay.
Their poop is going to be very small on that because of the way that it's processed.
And this plan of ours, Darren's going to love. This is actually Lotus's poop. And it's not his Lotus, her dog's name. It's Lotus.
It took me 5 days to do this, okay? So I had to make sure I marked it, knew where it was, and go back, so.
Looks like you're going yard looking for the pipes in the ground. The best part about this, and I have to tell you, my pooper scooper in my house since I switched to raw is rusted. Because with my guy, I feed raw, my golden retriever, and I know you'll attest with Big Joe, he poops about 2 of those a day. And then if they sit in the sun for a couple of days, they just turn into a white powder. And you can literally kick it with your foot and it literally just, so I can just mow mine right back into the earth from whence they came. And
Good, replenishing the earth.
yeah, it's just a carbon chain to start, a carbon chain that's done. And that's just one of the benefits, because if I did that and fed, it's a mess. So one thing about poop though, your dog's poop will tell you a lot about how you're doing with the program that you're feeding them. They'll tell you if they're absorbing a lot of it. They'll tell you if they're voiding a lot of it. You'll get to see. It's one of
These lines in the stool are really important. So if you see that in your dog's stool, that's good. This one, you don't see that because it's just passing straight through the dog. This one is taking time to digest and break down and absorb. So that's why you see the lines in the stool there.
But if your dog is pooping white, that is a no-no. It means the dog has too much calcium and you need to tone it back. So this poop in the middle has been after 5 days. It did come out like that. And then after 5 days, it did like that. So that means all the nutrients that my dog was ate is being utilized in her system. And when you look at low-processed kibble, you look at, oh, I can get a 50-pound bag from Costco for $39.99. Guess what? That $39.99 is going in the backyard. So now, guess what? You're now going to have a very wealthy vet and not a healthy pet. So because now your dog is having some inflammation and it's just a processed kibble. So you've got to balance out your money. You're going to spend $39.99, but you're going to spend $200 at your vet. So
50 pounds of that food will be 45 pounds of poop in your yard.
yeah. So that's the poop thing. Does anybody have any questions on poop? Yeah.
My pup looks like in the first picture, very good always.
Okay.
She's on kibble.
Okay. That means
I'm over here thinking, how can we do
what kind of food is what kind of kibble?
I started out with the puppy, holistic puppy.
Uh-huh.
You do the earthworm.
Earthworm.
Okay.
And now I'm on the adult earthworm, kind of in a transition going to, I don't know, maybe that's really signature or Lotus.
But see, your dog's gut is healthy, and that's what it's telling you. It's telling you my gut is
So I
healthy.
need to keep thinking about improving her diet.
Like if you can throw some raw in there, I would recommend that because it looks like your gut is pretty healthy. So introducing raw would be no problem. It's the ones that look like that is where you need to prep your gut a little bit more when you do raw. Because that's telling us that the gut needs help. It's lacking digestive enzymes and maybe some good bacteria. So if you wet your cup of dog food and let it set overnight, guess what? It looks like that. So
Another thing with this, when you see a big stool like that, they're not absorbing their minerals, their vitamins. You're going to see ligament issues. You're going to see all kinds of problems that you're going to go to your vet for and hopefully get the right answer, but a lot of times you can fix it with nutrition. When they absorb everything, their whole system is going to be a lot healthier. So
Because plant-based proteins don't have as much amino acids, and a meat-based protein will have a lot more. So as an example, if you took a cat, you definitely want to feed a meat-based protein because there's all 24 amino acids that are essential, and the cat has to get them from that meat. So meat-based proteins are a lot better in terms of amino acids. The one thing I would say though with kidney disease is you actually don't really have to worry about protein as much as you think. The vets will tell you that. It's actually the phosphorus.
yeah, and ash.
It is not the protein. Yes, the protein helps because you don't want to overload. You wouldn't want to do, I don't know, like a dry dog food that has 40% protein. That wouldn't be good. But as long as you keep it moderate, it will be okay as long as you have that phosphorus at a very low level. So that's the key thing.
And then with the raw, what about like the actual phosphorus?
Well, I think Tom made a good point. It's really about what company you choose, and he made a good point about the cuts of meat that they're using. And one thing I know this is a different subject. One thing I thought was very important that he brought up was the cuts of meat they're using are very low in fat. I'm a big believer of that because I see across the country there's way too many dogs getting pancreatitis. Way too many. I hear it all the time in all different states, all different pet supply places. And I think because a lot of companies are choosing to use a cut of meat that is higher in fat, and as a result, their dogs are getting pancreatitis. And if you think about this logically, if you go to the store, that little thing of hamburger is a lot less than a lean steak, right? Like a filet mignon, right? So it really does come down to the quality of the ingredients going into there. So does that help? Does that make,
We'll help you transition. We'll help you. Okay. So with food safety, just like when you handle your raw meat, you're washing your hands, you're washing your utensils, you're washing your countertops. Make sure you do the same thing with your dog bowls just to avoid any cross-contamination. Common sense. Yeah, wash after you handle raw.
Okay, this is in your binder. There's a whole lot of information and a little bit of space here, but it's a great reference. And it just has some general guidelines. The one thing I really love about this one, just to point out, is everyone talks when they switch to raw, how much raw do I feed? That's the biggest question, because you go from buying a bag that literally takes everything you got sometimes to carry it out, to one that you can kind of like that. It says 2 to 3% of current weight or ideal body weight. I like the 2% rule on the mark. I tend to lean sometimes towards the 1.5 side because it's easy to add a little more. We all know it's easy to put weight on. But, for well-big dogs that are pregnant, or, you've got other dogs that are really young or very, very active, you can go up to 3, 4. I've seen them go a lot higher when they have that demand on the food. But general rule of thumb, it's just 1.5 or 2% of the
So a really easy way to feed raw and to know exactly what you're giving your dog is do their 2 to 3%, whatever's right for them. Get a kitchen scale that measures 2 decimals, zero out the bowl, and put their amount in there. It makes feeding raw foolproof, okay?
And then once you get used to it, you'll know exactly how much you're
Exactly. You do that one time.
Yeah.
You got
And
it.
then you know it. It's really super easy.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that same percentage breakdown the same for cats? For cats, is that?
Yeah. I mean, and again, you have to feed it what is the ideal weight. If your cat is overweight, you don't want to feed it at what it weighs then. You want to feed it what it should weigh.
And every animal is different. Like I've got a small dog who eats as much as a 25-pound dog, and she's 12 pounds. Her metabolism is through the roof. Every single dog is different. So these are guidelines, and you know your dog, so you adjust according to your dog.
One thing I want to bring up, because you brought up cats, and that's very important. Obviously, cat folks have tried raw, familiar with taurine, right? There's a lot of raw companies will have a cat-specific line. And sometimes those cat lines might have to have synthetics because they add more meat. They jump into that 95% range. And typically speaking, those 95 sides, they don't have enough fruit and vegetables. That's where you get that synthetic from sometimes. A lot of the raw companies, I know, for example, ours, because I had this question about 4 months ago. So I sent samples of everything that we made and had them all tested for taurine, and everything but one of our formulas actually is just fine. So when you're talking to your Barkery folks, ask them, is this a line that's had this meal tested for taurine? Because it can very well be that you could use the dog formula.
There are ones that are meat, bone, and organ, and this is perfectly safe for a cat.
Actually, this is a funny one because this is ours, but we market it for cats on the back. It has to, by law, say supplement, because there isn't any fruit and vegetable in there. It's not completely balanced, but what is a cat? It's an obligate carnivore. And what's in this bag? Meat, bone, organ, tripe. I mean, they love it. So it's a great way to rotate through. So there's a lot of raw opportunities. I apologize because I am such a golden retriever guy. I tend to talk about dogs the whole time I'm up here, and I sincerely apologize. I did mention cats along the way.
Well, also, when your cat is on a raw diet, guess what? That liver box doesn't smell as bad. So, yeah, that was a cool thing. Yeah, yeah, the cat box. But no, you'll see that their hairballs will be less. They no longer hear cats like ours. A lot of you have met our Willow cat and Brookside and Mutt and Lee Summit. You know, they both have their preferences of what they want to eat. And our Brookside cat just caught a mouse the first time in like 10 years. But she's got that taste now. But you'll notice it in the litter box.
Really?
I want to keep moving because we do have our demos coming up. So.
All right. Oh, yeah, this is you guys.
Yes.
All right, this is, okay. Do I have a question?
Yes. Does anybody have any questions for Tom?
We're going to move out of the specifically raw and move more into some other minimally processed opportunities, and it'll be these two guys predominantly. Yes, ma'am.
So, what I read before that you shouldn't buy store-bought like food, human-grade food, like chicken, let's say, and give it to your dog because they give it. You buy it, they sell it knowing that you're gonna cook it, so like all the bacteria, pathogens, whatever is gone. But when you give them to the pet raw,
You're going to have the bad bacteria. Because guess what? God did not create animals to cook. So therefore their gut is able to handle the raw. They even have a little bit of E. coli and salmonella in their digestive tract to handle that. So when they go catch a bird and they defeather it and eat it, it's fine. It's just you. You need to wash your hands. Like when you cook your chicken for yourself, wash your hands, wash your bowl, wash your cooking area. That's all. Other than that, your kitty will just let me for it. And like with our cats, we have just a couple that look us on the face and stuff. And I should have videos because Willow is Larry's little cat. But she eats all kinds of stuff. And, you know, looking at, again, your own colors. All right?
Any other raw questions? Perfect. Like she said, I'll be out back. I love talking about my stuff, as you've probably gathered by now. And I will turn it over to you guys, and I get to trust my own.
All right. You know, we talked about making food the easy way. I work almost 7 days a week, and my days are long. I want to feed raw, but do I want to go out? And trust me, I've been to seminars where you have to measure how much protein you have, all your vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And I almost went that way, and I go, I'm not going to. So there are options for those of us who have busy lifestyles, but want to do raw and don't do raw. And there's other ways that you can do it with either a premix and a base. And I'll let Alex kind of talk about some of those.
So there's other options, like she was saying, minimally processed. There's dehydrated, there's freeze-dried, and there's air-dried. And these are just all different processes of taking the moisture out of the food. But I cannot stress enough that if you buy food with no moisture, you have to add it back in. The more moisture, the better. Raw bones are great. Size does matter with them though, so you need to make sure that you are giving your dog the right size of bone. If you're giving a Rottweiler a bone that's this big, you've got a choking hazard. So if the dog can't walk off with the bone, it's probably a safe bet that it's okay for him to chew on it. So just, you know, we can help you when you come in, and if you have any questions about that, we can help you figure out which bone is appropriate for your dog. Yeah. Aggressive chewers, with any dog actually, please monitor them when you're giving them a bone. Do not just hand them something and let them go tend to their own. You want to monitor them, especially aggressive chewers. Try not to give them the harder bones because they could fracture their teeth on it. You want to give them the non-weight-bearing bones, like duck feet, chicken necks, things like that, the lamb meaty bones, something that they can crunch through and eat the entire thing is going to be a lot safer for their teeth. Now the smaller dogs, they can handle those thicker bones as long as you're monitoring them, but you know your dog, so keep an eye on them. Yeah. Oh, turkey necks. Those are great. These are great for big dogs because they can eat the whole thing. This though would be a meal replacement. Don't feed your dog dinner if you're going to feed them this. This is a huge bone.
Great for your big dogs. On your small dogs, yeah, chicken neck. And, you know, again, don't cook. So
And don't cook any of your raw bones. That's why they're raw. They've got all that beneficial bacteria in them, so don't cook that out. If you cook them, they're going to splinter too, and that's when you've got the danger of a choking hazard. Again, with the splintering. So,
any questions on raw bones? Yes.
Can cats have bones?
You know, it depends on
they
cats.
still eat it.
We have one cat that would chew on a raw bone. Yes. So it's not, I mean, if they will, go for it. Alejandro?
Yeah, just to clarify, what's the difference between like a softer bone, like is one of the, I know we carry lamb fever, is that a harder bone? Or,
That's like an in-between though.
Yeah.
and then what's a hard bone?
Generally speaking, the bone density, if it's something that is constantly varying weight, it's going to have to build a lot of bone density or it will break. So just the way they're biologically made, if you pick a bone in the body, like those lamb meaty bones, that's a sternum of the lamb that's butchered out. That is not a weight-bearing bone. So you could literally take like a spoon or something and do that. But those, anytime someone mentions the word femur, the bigger the animal, the weight they bear, the denser that will be. So buffalo femurs and cows, those, you could probably drive a nail into a deck with some of those bones. But generally speaking, that's your guide. Yeah.
Less.
This is pretty cool. You know, because if you're feeding a raw bone, and let's say your dog does have pancreatitis and you scrape tomorrow, and you want to still give them the benefit, take it out, put some pumpkin in it, and refreeze it, and your dog will love you. But if your dog does eat tomorrow and you want to save some money, scrape it out, put some, we do almond butter, cashew butter, well, no xylitol in it. But just make it a really cool treat. Do a bone broth. And I'm not going to talk about bone broth this time because it's a big story and a long, lengthy one, so I'm not going to go into it. But if you do make bone broth, and I think this couple with the two dogs, you might try it. And I do have some recipes, so if you're interested, email me. One of the things that vets will tell you, don't feed your dog any raw bones because it can hurt the digestive tract. Well, they're absolutely right, and that's why you don't leave your dog unsupervised. And like Alex said earlier, size does matter. The bigger, you know, I always kind of say the size of your dog's head should be the size of that bone. Don't give a little tiny bone to a 20-pound dog. You know, you can do it for a 2-pound dog. And that 2-pound dog can carry around a 5-pound bone, and you'll be fine. But size does matter. And for all of our staff members, please let people know and size bones appropriately and make recommendations for the right bone. So,
One more thing with raw bones. If your dog has not had a raw bone before and you want to start introducing raw and you're not feeding raw yet, raw bones are a good way to introduce that, but you have to do it gradually. So we recommend giving it to your dog for about 20 minutes and then taking it away and refreezing it. Do that for about 3 to 4 days and see how your dog's stomach is. Most of the time, that's another way for them to acclimate into that, but do not just come in and get a raw bone and give it to your dog. They will probably get sick, okay? So you have to transition with raw bones as well.
okay. Does anybody have any questions on raw bones? So everybody's going to get raw bones?
Yes.
So we're all good. Now we're going to have not our cooking.
Our cook-off.
It's I don't call it really cooking because it's prepared. Let's do it that way. And like I said, this is going to be an easy way for you guys to do it at home and supplement your kibble and your raw. So when we do this, and this is how I transitioned my dogs onto it, is I put more raw in it because that's what they're used to, but when I was having a house sitter, I knew she wasn't gonna do raw the way I wanted to do it. So I had to pre-make it, and I stored it in little Tupperware containers.
So the food, it's rehydrating, it's getting a little consistency like oatmeal. You can rehydrate, you don't have to use just water. And one option that I do is I will rehydrate with water and then pour the goat milk on top of it. Or I'll rehydrate with water. You can use fish stock. You can use all kinds of, that stuff. We won't open that, no. It stinks, but it is so good for them. So, yeah, the lady, the creator of Answers, we met her at a show.
She's the biggest fan of fermented products on earth. And she really is. She believes that fermentation as one of the keys to true nutrition.
Yes. So, and I had some inflammation going in my body, and she goes, you need to drink this fermented fish stock. And I'm open to anything, right? However, when I opened this, I was not.
I love it though.
Yes.
Give it to your dogs and cats.
And they do love it. So adding, and I have a story, one of our employees who's went on to bigger and better things, Michael Dodds had a carrier mix, jumped out the window of his car right when he first started working for us. Skinned up her leg, broke everything. Yeah. Went and did the vet, and they weren't really hopeful for his pet. And he started working for us, and I said, you know what, because of the inflammation, because of the immune system, all that, I want you on this fish stock. And I go, I want you to be my testimony that this is going to work. After a few weeks, the dog was getting better. Within months, it was Stella.
Yeah.
Stella was then walking pretty normally. To this day, and I wish I had a video, you wouldn't even know she had any injury whatsoever. And the vet was very, very impressed that Stella recuperated as fast as she did. And he attested to, number one, he fed raw, but he also added that fermented fish stock.
Just in case you're thinking, if I put this in my Vitamixer and add a bunch of things to it that will dull down the taste, I can attest I still won't. It was awful. And it ruins the Vitamixer. It never gets a fish stock.
No, it doesn't.
I'm telling you, it doesn't. You can wash it 50 times, it will still smell. And she'll say, I pride myself in this because it will raise the dead.
No, but if you do store this, and because I learned a lesson, put it in a different, put this in a smaller container with a lid on it, because then your rest of your refrigerator will not smell like fermented fish stock. So, or if you have a little, you know.
Put it in the fridge like this, so it
Well,
doesn't
I
do
know.
anything.
And I put it in another container.
And there's pieces in there too. If you think you're gonna hold
Oh,
it
yeah.
down and drink a piece of fish will hit. I did that too.
Does anybody want to try?
You know, if you want, but you gotta go outside and try and take it back. Because I'm telling you, it really is wonderful.
Oh, where's the goat cheese? Where's the goat cheese? Right here. All right. I'm a big advocate of, I love goat cheese. And now with the garden in full swing, goat, and my dogs eat it as well. So, again, this is something you can add. And it adds all this goodness in it. Tom, what's it in?
Okay.
Raw, unpasteurized, it just kind of crumbles up for you. So
This is goat cheese that we make. We use, our goats are family farm that are literally pasture raised and grass fed, and then they're retired. They don't make it to market. And when they don't go to market, what's the best part about that? There's not a grain of corn in their diet, because when they're done doing what they do, they just go to the field. So the milk that they make is phenomenal. It's rich in conjugated linoleic acid and all of those probiotics and good bacteria strains. We use vegetable rennet and the microbes, and we turn it into goat cheese. This actually is fantastic in terms of bifidobacterium, Bulgaricus acidophilus, which is the strongest of your lactose strains, also Thermophilus. So when people are talking about probiotics, we all know that that's a fancy word for good bacteria and yeast. And so this is a great way to get strains that you don't normally see. And because we use unpasteurized goat milk, it's not a powdered additive. It doesn't say added something coccus on it. It literally is unpasteurized, so it is a phenomenal supplement and one of the best ways to get a pill into a dog beverage.
I wanted to, where's the Urban Wolf thing?
We had some samples of the small package.
Can I have, where are they?
Courtney, Urban Wolf samples?
Couple. Because I want to show you one thing, and this is how I got onto premixes and bases. Urban Wolf, and I think it was up, well, it was up there, is a plain diet. It's great for those cancer dogs. And our veterinarian was working with us on this. She said you have to carry Urban Wolf. And because when you look at carbohydrates, guess what? That feeds cancer. And we didn't want that. And our dogs thrived on that for many, many years until I went totally raw. So we're going, with this, it is just a vitamin mineral premix. So you do have to add a little bit to it. You have to add we had pumpkin, we had goat's milk, and we'll do,
I'm gonna pass this around with this little bit rehydrated. So you guys smell it, it smells really good, and see the texture of it. You don't have to taste it, but
you can't do the goat's milk now, or the goat cheese. We're going to have you taste the goat cheese, but I just told on it, so. Yeah, the Urban Wolf isn't going to hurt you. So, and you will notice that when us at the Barkery, if our staff eats our food, it's okay. You know, they really listen, they come on command. So it's pretty cool. No, we eat a lot of our dog treats. They're really awesome. So if we can eat it, it's good enough for our dogs. And that's what I do when I go to, we're leaving on a wine show next week, and I will literally say, if I can't eat that, except for the raw stuff, I'm not going to eat. But if I can't eat it myself, I am not bringing it into the store. That is our philosophy when we go, and very few companies meet that criteria. So that's why if you look at, say, well, you don't have this or this, or this is something weird. Well, guess what? It fits the criteria, and we will stop a brand if they change their formula, if they sell to a big conglomerate and it's a co-pack with all these other low brands, we will discontinue it and we will transition you onto something else. That's what we believe. Even though it may be lots of money or whatever, I'll stop it because it doesn't meet our philosophy.